Good morning. Start your day informed and ahead. Today is Wednesday, the 19th of August. I'm Angela Lagunzad-Castro.
And I'm Cesca Litton-Kalaw. We are bringing you the perfect mix of the headlines you need and the conversations that shape your day.
From the news desk to the digital space, we have got you covered. I'm Pauline Verzosa, and welcome to Morning Matters.
First in the news, flooding continues to disrupt communities across central and southern Luzon, forcing residents to rely on boats and makeshift rafts as waters remain high. Here is the report.
Flooding has submerged vast areas of Papalit, Pampanga. In Barangay San Vicente, residents have turned to makeshift rafts made of bamboo and plastic gallons to get around the flooded community.
Mahirap pero wala kang magagawa kundi maging resilient kuno.
In Macabebe, boats have also become a common sight. For now, residents can only hope the floodwaters will soon recede and allow life to return to normal. On Tuesday afternoon, Social Welfare Secretary Rex Gatchalian met with provincial officials in Pampanga. Local officials appealed for more assistance, with no clear indication yet of when the floodwaters will subside. The Department of Social Welfare and Development has sent additional food packs to affected residents. Discussions are also underway on possible cash aid for those still bearing the brunt of rains brought by recent tropical cyclones and the southwest monsoon. In Hagonoy, Bulacan, constant flooding has forced nearly half of the residents to leave. For those who stayed, boats have become a necessity. The situation is no better in nearby Barangay Mestiza. An unfinished flood control project there has left the community vulnerable, with floodwaters continuing to envelop the area. In Bataan, News 5's drone video showed nearly every establishment submerged in Barangay Almacen in Hermosa. In nearby Dinalupihan, all 64 barangays remain flooded, a situation residents say has not happened there since 2014.
Medyo matagal na po yung ulan, parang naano na po yung lupa, sawa na sa tubig. Kaya matagal mag-subsided po yung tubig ngayon. Nanggagaling po yung tubig sa bundok. Kaya po kung mapapansin nyo, kulay brown po yung tubig.
And in Batangas, Sitio Bagbag in Barangay Prensalian has been cut off from the rest of the community due to flooding brought by the incessant downpour.
Face-to-face classes remain suspended in several areas today due to bad weather. And this includes all of Metro Manila as well as the provinces of Abra, Benguet, Ilocos Sur, La Union, and Pangasinan. In-person classes are also suspended in Bataan, Bulacan, Nueva Ecija, Pampanga, Tarlac, and Zambales. The same goes for Batangas, Cavite, Laguna, Rizal, Occidental Mindoro, and Oriental Mindoro. Malacanang says government offices in these areas will also implement alternative work arrangements, except for agencies involved in health services and disaster response.
Authorities are looking at new measures to address flooding after extreme rain submerged several parts of Metro Manila. The MMDA and Department of Public Works and Highways are working on an updated drainage master plan targeted for completion next year. They are also conducting feasibility studies with a Dutch company for possible water retention facilities in government properties, including Camp Aguinaldo and the Rizal Memorial Sports Complex. Meanwhile, Metro Manila mayors are considering a unified policy and penalty system against littering and illegal garbage disposal.
Ang ganito pong weather phenomena ay talaga pong mauulit at mauulit. At ganoon din po, mauulit po yung pagbaha. Kami naman po, ang ma-assure po namin, ay nagtutulungan po kami ng DPWH, under Sec. Vince Dizon, sa pag-find ng ways para maibsan po yung pagbabaha dito sa Metro Manila. Talaga pong naghahabol tayo sa effects ng climate change.
So part of that discussion was also, so the proposed allocation of funds in the 2027 national budget or GAA. So MMC President and San Juan Mayor Francis Zamora already said they need to get national funds to dredge San Juan River because San Juan River flows through Quezon City, San Juan, obviously, Mandaluyong, and Manila. So there are private companies helping, but they need more than the private. Siyempre kasi yung sinasabi niya na nakakahiya sa private companies because hindi naman matulak na bilisan nyo, like, ganito yung pace na gusto namin sa dredging. So yung commitment ni MMDA Chairman Don Artes was they are going to take an active role in the drainage master plan for Metro Manila, so it can be funded this year and be implemented as soon as possible. Pero yung commitment nila is, yung sinasabi nila is, the usual target is the feasibility study and engineering design. But the engineering design daw is expensive.
Costly.
So they can commit to the feasibility study. So that's the size of the drainages, the elevations, the interconnectivity, para mas mabawasan yung kailangan na funds.
Yeah, so I actually came across an article also from Rappler about 3 years ago, and this was already the plan of the Metro Manila Council to have
3 years
a
ago.
drainage master plan 2023. They were already talking about this, but 3 years later, parang ito pa rin yung pinag-uusapan natin, feasibility, ano? So it also begs a question, what are we actually doing? Are we just making promises? Are we just offering solutions? But where's the political will? Where's the implementation? It's good that we start with feasibility, obviously, pero if we're only funding this and wala naman talaga tayong nakikitang improvement or projects, then maybe we should also be wary of the promises that our leaders are making.
Kayo nga, pinlano na nga, gusto nyo pang tuparin. Pero hindi, kidding aside, ano, tama kayo dyan eh, ang daming plano. There has always been plans, no? Since, sabi nga nila, nung pinag-usapan namin nila BOC-ED before, yung spillway, 1975 plan pa yon. It didn't push through because a lot of things happened, di ba, nag-martial law, etc. Tapos, it was costly, and etc. And then, there was also a flood management master plan during the Pinoy administration. Di ba, it was funded by World Bank, and then under the leadership of then Secretary Singson, they drafted this master plan after nung onslaught nung Ondoy, nung 2009. So they did this, and then if you can remember, nung kasagsagan ng flood control project last year, tapos kasama si former Secretary Babe Singson sa commissioners, 'di ba, ng ICI, sinabi niya yan na meron ganito na plano during the Aquino administration. Pero ang sinabi naman ng Malacanang through former Secretary Bonoan, wala kaming nare-receive na master plan from the current administration. Tapos sinasabi naman ni Babe Singson, saan mapupunta yun? It's just there. Di ko naman inuuwi yun. Di ko naman dinala yan when we, di ba, when we finished our term. So, yung nagkakaganon. So, ang nangyayari kasi, pagka nagkakaroon ng iba't ibang leader, hindi natutupad yung mga plano because lahat pabida or etc. So, hopefully, this plan matupad dahil ang daming kailangan gawin. Marami pa tayong pag-uusapan dito tungkol sa plano na ito. But this time around, joining us is Diego Agustin Mariano, Information Officer of the Office of Civil Defense. Magandang umaga po sa inyo. Thank you for joining us.
So, magandang umaga po at magandang umaga din po sa ating mga taga-subaybay.
Yes, Sir Diego, hingi lang po kami ng update sa inyo. What is the latest overall impact of the habagat and recent tropical cyclones?
Yes po, as of latest report po namin, ito pong nagdaang bagyong Luis, Maymay at Habagat is nag-iwan po ng 1.5 million na pamilya po or 5.4 million na katao po ang apektuhan po nitong mga nagdaang pag-uulan. Sa numero pong iyan is nasa 12,000 mahigit na pamilya or 42,000 mahigit na katao po ang nasa loob po ng ating mga evacuation centers. Sa kasamang palad naman po, itong mga nagdaang pag-uulan, nag-iwan po ng casualties. Meron po tayo na itala na 27 na namatay, 17 na injured at isa pa pong nawawala.
Sir, ano pong mga areas ang masasabi po nating most affected nitong mga nagdaang pag-ulan at alin po yung mga lugar na pinakakailangan bantayan po?
Opo, as of now po, kung pagbabasihan po namin is yung numbers of affected families. Ang tinamaan po talaga or pinaka-affected is Region 3, Region 1 at Calabarzon po. Kasi ang Region 3 naman po is nagtala po ng more than 893,000 na pamilya. At ang Region 1 naman po is nagtala naman po ng more than 256,000 na pamilya po. So ang pinabantayan pa rin po natin is yung mga low-lying areas pa rin po, pati yung mga nasa mountainous areas para po sa mga landslide prone areas. Kasi ang pag-uulan naman po, kung magpo-focus po tayo sa pag-ulan, is halos sa buong Luzon, no, at then parts of Visayas and Mindanao. Dahil itong habagat naman po is hindi po concentrated sa lugar lamang po, di po tulad ng sa Bagyo na meron pong track. Ito pong hanging habagat is halos sa kalat-kalat po, kaya ang ating mga binabantayan pa rin po is itong mga tinatamaan pa rin po ng ulan at ito po mga especially po yung low-lying areas and yung mga landslide prone areas po.
Sir Diego, are there areas that have been isolated, mga hindi maabot ng tulong?
As of now po, wala pong reports ng isolated areas, pero meron po tayong reports na mahirap pong puntahan kasi po meron po mga reports ng kalsadang hindi po madaanan buhat po ng baha at landslide debris. Then sa kalsada man po, meron po tayo na itala na 117 na kalsada po ang hindi po madaanan, and then 11 bridges po na hindi rin po madaanan. Yun nga po dahil po sa presensya po ng tubig baha at debris po buhat po ng landslide. Then meron din po kasi tayong mga flooded areas na nasa 450 po na areas ang flooded po, no. Kaya though wala po tayong isolated areas, meron po tayong mga areas na medyo mahirap pong puntahan buhat nga po nitong pagbabaha at tila pong debris dahil po sa landslide naman po.
Sir Diego, sa inyo po bang assessment, meron po bang mga areas ngayon sa ating bansa na hindi naman po pangkaraniwang binabaha, pero dahil nga po dito sa mga problema natin sa, of course, yung climate change, yung pagtatapon ng basura, and of course, yung mga flood control projects na hindi naman nagawa, ay meron na po bang mga areas ngayon na binabaha na dati hindi naman?
I don't have the exact data na kung meron pong areas na usually na hindi po binabaha, din ngayon binabaha. Pero sa Metro Manila po, marami po nag-reports na do binaha agad, is meron ding report na mabilis naman po mag-subside. Di tulad po dati na bumabaha, na matagal na bumaba. Ngayon naman po, ang as per MMDA, marami pong areas na binabaha pero mabilis din naman pong mag-subside.
Sir Diego, dahil sunod-sunod po yung malalakas na ulan itong mga nakaraang linggo po, enough pa po ba, sapat pa po ba yung resources ng mga LGUs pati po ng national government?
Opo, sapat pa naman po yung maaari nating ibigay na assistance at tulong sa ating mga kababayan na naapektuhan at maapektuhan po nitong mga nagdaang pag-uulan. Sa tunayan nga po, meron na po tayong naipabot na almost 797 million worth of assistance ang naipamahagi na po sa ating mga kababayan. At sapat pa rin naman po dahil ang ating DSWD naman po is nakapag-stockpile pa po ng sapat na numero o stock ng mga relief goods, mga family kits na maaaring pamahagi agad po sa ating mga kababayan na once na mangailangan po. Then ang LGUs naman po, tinutulungan din naman po ng national government agencies upang matulungan or ma-augment yung mga binibigay po nilang assistance sa ating mga kababayang naapektuhan po.
Well, Sir Diego, when it comes to the warning systems, kasi hindi naman dire-diretso yung pagbuhos ng ulan. Sometimes tumitigal siya, so it may lull people into a false sense of security na safe nang bumalik or okay lang na hindi sila mag-evacuate sa areas nila. So ano yung mga warning systems at paano nabibigyan ng early warnings yung mga residents sa vulnerable areas?
Una po, from the national government, meron po tayong tinatawag na emergency alert and warning messages, yung EAWM, na siya po yung naririnig nyo pong tumutunog na maingay. Yun po yung isa po sa pangunahin naming warning na binibigay. Especially ito pong rainfall warning or heavy rainfall warning is almost every 3 hours po ang sukatan po nito. So kumbaga matapos man po itong 3 hours na to is another warning naman po kung patuloy pa rin po yung threat ng heavy rainfall sa kanila, no. Then aside from ating mga early warning messages na binibigay po nationwide, especially do sa mga affected, katuwang po natin yung mga LGUs po natin na siya pong mismong bumababa sa ating mga kababayan na sila po yung tumitingin kung dapat na po ba silang lumikas o sila po ba ay nasa pangangitnan, no? So sakaling hindi man makarating sa kanila yung mga advisories namin through the text messages or through the social media, yung mismong mga LGUs, yung mga barangay, yung mga local TRMs po natin, sila po mismo pumupunta sa ating mga kababayan para sabihan sila or bigyan sila ng warning na sila po ay nasa panganib or kailangan na pong lumikas.
All right, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you talking to us. Diego Agustin Mariano, Information Officer of the Office of Civil Defense.
Thank you po at mag-ingat po tayo lahat.
Don't go away. Morning Matters will be back after a short break.
Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Pag-asa is monitoring 3 tropical depressions as well as the continued effects of habagat. And to walk us through the latest weather situation, we now have Pag-asa weather specialist Lori De La Cruz. Lori, ano na ba ang latest sa ating panahon?
Yes po, good morning po at sa lahat na ating mga taga-subaybay. Kasalukuyan patuloy pa rin na nakakaranas po ng mga malalakas na pag-ulan ang Zambales, Bataan at Occidental Mindoro. Bunsod po ng southwest monsoon o habagat. Gayun din, mga moderate to occasionally heavy rain so katamtaman hanggang sa kung minsan ay malakas na mga pagbuhos ng ulan ang inaasahan sa Metro Manila, Ilocos Sur, La Union, Pangasinan, Abra, Benguet, Tarlac, Pampanga, Bulacan, Nueva Ecija, Laguna, Rizal, Cavite, Batangas at Oriental Mindoro. For the rest of Luzon and Antique, maging sa Aklan, ay maulap din ang papawari na may mga kalat-kalat na pagulan at pagkidlat pagkulog dahil naman po sa epekto din ng habagat. So patuloy natin pinag-iingat ang ating mga kababayan sa halos buong Luzon at maging sa Western Visayas dahil sa patuloy na epekto o patuloy na mga pagulan na ito, maaari po itong magdulot pa rin ng mga pagbaha, especially sa low-lying areas. Meanwhile, yung bagyo po na minomonitor natin sa loob ng ating area of responsibility, huling nakita sa layan 675 kilometers silangan ng Itbay at Batanes. Kasalukuyan po ito may lakas na hangin na umaabot ng 55 kilometers per hour near the center at gustiness na 70 kilometers per hour. Pero itong pong bagyo ngayon, hindi naman po ito inaasahang maka-apekto sa anong bahagi ng ating lalan. Yan ang latest mula dito sa Pag-asa, ito po si Lori De La Cruz.
Lori, nabanggit mo nga, 3 tropical cyclones ngayon ang binabantayan ng Pag-asa. Pero ano ba yung epekto niyan, particularly sa habagat?
Ito po ay nag-enhance palalo ng habagat. Like, for example, si DD Neneng or Tropical Depression Neneng ngayon, ito yung directly nag-enhance ngayon ng ating habagat. And then, sa mga susunod na araw, dahil may paparating pa po tayong tropical cyclone na gigilid din po ng far, most likely ito po ay mag-enhance. Yun po yung role po nitong mga weather systems na ito sa paligid ng ating area of response.
At Lori, ito na mga si Tropical Depression Neneng, ito ba ay makaka-apekto pa rin sa ating bansa?
Mababa naman po yung chance na ito ay magkaroon ng direct impact sa bansa.
Alright, maraming salamat para sa mga update na yan. That was Pag-asa Weather Specialist, Lori De La Cruz.
Now, many communities in Bulacan remain flooded due to continuous rains brought by the southwest monsoon or habagat. For the latest situation on the ground, we go now live to mobile journalist Daniel Dayaw. Daniel, kumusta ang sitwasyon dyan?
Yes, good morning, Angela, Cesca Litton-Kalaw. Nandito nga tayo ngayon sa Baliwag, Bulacan, particularly sa Concepcion Subdivision kung saan ayon sa mga residente ay talagang binabaha kapag umuulan. So as per my observation, pakita ko na lang din sa inyo yung ganap dito ay kung makikita nyo ay hanggang binti na yung tubig dito. So far, kanina kasi dumating kami dito ng 4 a.m. So yung tubig dito, ankle deep pa lang, pero now na patuloy nga yung pag-ulan dito sa Baliwag, Bulacan, particularly sa Concepcion Subdivision, ay tumataas yung tubig. So kung makikita nyo, ay may isa tayong kapatid na naglalakad hanggang binti na yung tubig. So itong street na to, Angela, Cesca Litton-Kalaw, ito yung ilang-ilang street. So kung makikita nyo, baha talaga. Tapos yung mga tricycle ay lumulusong. So makikita nyo din na bukas din yung mga tindahan dito, pero kanina nakausap natin yung may-ari ng tindahan, ang sabi niya tumutumal din daw yung kanilang benta dahil nga baha at yung mga residente ay nag-stay lang sa bahay nila. So makikita nyo si Ma'am Esmeralda, siya ay naglilimas ng tubig. So ma'am, hello po, good morning po. Ayan, si Ma'am Esmeralda, kanina pa natin siya nakikitang naglilimas ng tubig kasi sabi niya yung tubig pumapasok na sa loob ng tindahan. So, ang sabi niya rin sa atin kanina kapag hindi siya naglimas minu-minuto, oras-oras ay papasok so walang magagawa. So kanina din, Angela, Cesca, Pauline, may mga nakausap din tayong residente, si Sir Lorenzo. Ang sabi niya sa atin, 30 years nang bumabaha dito pero first time daw nangyari na ilang linggo nang hindi humuhupa yung baha. So ibig sabihin naka-stagnant yung water dito kasi ang sabi nila ito daw yung ito yung pinakadinadaanan ng mga tubig. So yung pag pumunta ka dito sa likod ko, kung mapapansin nyo yung current ay pakita ko lang sa inyo, yung current, yung mga basura ay papunta doon. So ang ibig sabihin nun ay papunta kasi yon sa irrigation, yung patubig. So isa sa mga concerns ng residente dito ay yung tubig meron silang dalang basura. So yung basura na yon, isa daw yon sa mga rason kung bakit nagka-clog yung drainage nila. Therefore nahihirapan talagang humupa yung baha. So far as per my observation, pagdating sa pag-cover ng Bulacan, Mapahagonoy, mapapunta dito sa Baliwag, isa yung sinasabi ng mga tao, flood control. Ang ine-expect daw kasi talaga nila ay mapapabuti ang kanilang sitwasyon, pero at the end of the day, yung flood control naging flood lang. Angela, Cesca, Pauline.
Yes, Daniel, yun nga itatanong ko sa'yo kasi dyan specifically in Baliwag, meron daw mga around 5 flood control projects noong 2025 na kinailangan gawin. I was wondering, sa paglilibot mo dyan, nakita mo ba yun? Meron ba talagang flood control project doon na nakatiwangwang lang? Balitaan mo kami, Daniel.
Yes, Angela, dumating kasi tayo, pumunta tayo dito kahapon or kagabi ng gabi na, so hindi tayo masyadong nakakita ng flood control projects. Pero ang sinasabi ng mga residente dito, marami, mapa Malolos, mapa ibang barangay ay may mga tinatayong flood control. Specifically sa, excuse me po, irrigation, ay sinasabi nila na yun daw talaga yung inaasahan nila na mag-stop nga ng pagpunta ng tubig. Pero yun nga sinasabi nila na simulan pero hindi naman natapos. So yung mga tubig pag pumupunta doon may dalang basura. So imbis na makatulong yung mga flood control barriers daw ay sabi nila mas lalo pa daw nakalala ng sitwasyon. So far yung sinabi ng mga residente dito meron nga daw sa Malolos at iba-ibang parte pero wala pa tayong nakikita niyan at yun yung iikutin natin mamaya, Angela.
Alright, sige. Ito si Daniel, kahapon pa yan dyan sa Bulacan. Maraming salamat at mag-iingat ka dyan, mobile journalist Daniel Daya.
EDCOM2 co-chairman Representative Roman Romulo said addressing violence in schools requires a whole-of-community approach. In an interview with The Big Story, Romulo said efforts must go beyond simply tightening school security, emphasizing the need for stronger guidance and mental health support for students. He said the Department of Education is now processing around 10,000 school counselor positions, which have already been approved by the Department of Budget and Management and the Civil Service Commission. Romulo also emphasized the crucial role of parents in protecting children, particularly amid proposed restrictions on social media and online gaming for minors.
We can talk about all the laws that we can pass. We can perfect the implementation, but really, the role of the parents is very important. And I think that is not only in our jurisdiction. That was shown by the study on why Australia had to reformulate its social media ban because it had 1 out of 3 parents, based on the study says, was saying that they were the ones who were in fact allowing their children to use social media. So parents are crucial. 1 out of 3, that's big.
Right. So mga magulang pa lang kailangan ng edukasyon.
Well, we have the Lifelong Learning Development Framework Act already. But again, it's difficult to blame anyone. We know that we have many Filipino parents who are solo parents or both are working. But again, that's our responsibility as parents. Kailangan tanungin natin talaga yung ating mga anak, kahit pagod na tayo. Kamusta yung araw? Ano yung natutunan nyo? Ano yung, kung nasa computer sila, ano yung pinapanood nyo, ginagawa ninyo?
2 students, including the gunman, were killed in a shooting inside a private school in Zamboanga City. The Education Department expressed grave concern over the incident and threw its support behind the Ateneo de Zamboanga community. DepEd has mobilized mental health partners to provide psychosocial interventions to traumatized survivors, faculty, and students, and issued an urgent appeal to the public to halt the spread of graphic photos and videos online.
And here is our statement as a network on this issue. News 5 and One News treat mass shootings like suicide. The World Health Organization considers suicide a social concern. We believe extensive reporting of these events can inspire copycat attacks.
As media organizations adhering to the highest tenets of responsible journalism, we do not and will not report extensively or routinely on these incidents. We implore other news organizations to do the same.
Now we call on the relevant authorities to conduct thorough investigations, to deliver justice for the victims, and to take necessary steps to prevent another tragedy. Now don't go away, because Money Talks with Kathy Yang is up next to get you ahead of the markets. Stay tuned to One News.
Good morning mga kapatid. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Malacanang says Vice President Sara Duterte has canceled her planned trip to Japan from August 19 to 24. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro says Duterte's travel authority was issued on August 17, but the office of the Vice President requested its cancellation the following day. The Vice President earlier disputed reports about the trip, saying her plans had changed and the updated information was formally submitted to the Office of the President. Duterte also warned against publicly disclosing her schedule, saying it would compromise her security. But Castro defended the disclosure, saying Duterte is a public official and the public has a right to know about official travel, especially when public funds are involved. Alright, so yung naging sagutan ng dalawa, naman, so sanabi after sabihin ni Yusek Claire Castro yan na she is a public official and the public has the right to know where she is, etc. Especially the public funds is involved, sabi ni VP Sara, parang, sige, di dapat lahat na ini-issuehan ng travel authority ng Office of the President should be also disclosed in public. At pakita din kung saan napupunta yung mga funds na yun. So hinamon niya. As of now, I don't know if there's answer na or reply from Yusek Castro, but abangan.
But that also begs the question, because as private citizens, we have the luxury of not disclosing where we are at certain times. Kahit na posting. Hello. Lahat tayo guilty dito. We don't post on time. But that's also because, like, in my case, I don't like people knowing where I am exactly when I'm there. Kaya late ako mag-post. But does the Vice President have that? I mean, syempre may security concerns nga. Pero
But hindi ko na din makita yung problem na disclosing where she's going because nagfe-Facebook naman sila or kunyari nandoon siya sa the Netherlands, 'di ba? May mga supporters siya doon na hinaharap niya. Tapos live din naman streaming, so people would know where she is. Exactly.
Especially when public funds are being used to fund these travels.
So that's the difference kasi private citizens have the luxury nga, 'di ba? Because private citizens don't use public funds.
So kahit mag-leave ka, hindi mo naman kailangan sabihin kung saan ka pupunta, 'di ba? But this one, if it's an official travel, then tama naman si Yusek Claire, no? The public has a right to know about where she's going, where she's using the money that was given to her. Kung talaga bang official travel yan, ano yung purpose.
Basta isipin nila kasi these funds are from our tax. Diba? From
So
our
we have a
taxes.
right to know. Criticize na rin ng OVP for constantly traveling.
Yes. Pero di ba sumagot siya before na sabi niya, most of the time na ginagamit niya pag umaalis siya ay personal use na daw. Especially when she's going to her father to visit The Hague.
That last trip, yung when she visited The Hague, I think there were there were work engagements in different countries, pero yung Hague personal.
Ayan.
All right, as we know, Representative Benny Abante is calling on Vice President Sara Duterte to personally face her impeachment trial. Abante said Duterte should explain the allegations against her instead of leaving the task to her former staff members. He also questioned the Vice President's whereabouts as flooding hit several parts of Luzon. Abante claimed Duterte was traveling abroad while the country was dealing with severe weather.
And joining us now is Manila Representative Congressman Benny Abante. Kong, good morning. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Hi, Kong.
Good morning, good morning, good morning for inviting me. Good morning to all of you. Rainy day.
Yes, rainy day. We hope you're keeping safe, Congressman. Pero let's talk about what you've said on the record. You want Vice President Sara Duterte to personally face the impeachment court. Bakit niyo po nasabi yun, Congressman, kahit na 8 weeks na rin naman na po into the impeachment trial at hindi pa po nagpapakita ang Vice Presidente?
Well, the thing is, the Vice President, I think, left again yesterday, no? And she must realize that whether she left for another country using her personal funds, and that is not what we're trying to say. No, there is an impeachment process going on, and it becomes her duty as Vice President to face the impeachment court and explain her side. Sinabi ko naman na kung talagang hindi siya dapat ma-impeach, paliwanag niya. And I think the impeachment court will appreciate all the piece of evidence given. Wala na yung politics dito, yun lang ebidensya na pinisent ng prosecution team. No? And I think that the prosecution team has done a wonderful work in revealing and exposing the evidence gathered by the prosecution team. Now, it becomes the duty of the Vice President to answer all of the allegations against her. Oh, yun ang pagkakataon na binibigay sa kanya.
But Kong Benny, one could easily argue, especially the defense, that they can say na according to the impeachment rules, she is not required to show up in the court kasi meron naman siyang legal team.
Whether she is required or not, it becomes the duty of the Vice President to personally answer all the allegations, di ba? I mean, that would even be good to our people because our people are expecting her to answer back. Oo. Ako talagang mali ang prosecution, mali yung impeachment complaint na binigay sa kanya, dapat lamang na siya na mismo, bakit kinakailangan pang ang mga defense lawyers niya ang pumunta, no? Of course, kailangan niya mga defense lawyers. Binabayaran niya. The thing is this, masyado na ang nai-spend ng gobyerno sa impeachment process na ito. And I would like the Vice President to realize that we are spending millions of the people's money on that. Dapat nang tuldukan to at magkaroon na ng closure dito. Total, dalawa na lang naman ang pinag-uusapan dito, yung confidential fund saka yung SALN. And yesterday, even the disbursing officer has admitted that she was ordered by the Vice President to give all the money to Colonel La Chica, who is not even an organic member of the Office of the Vice President. Ibig sabihin, si Miss Gina Acosta dapat ang talagang taong nagdi-disperse ng fund na yan. Oo. Ang pinag-uusapan dito, ang katanungan dito, ba't kinakailangang ibigay kay nila Chica? Oo. Number 1, kayo sino binigyan? Number 2, saan ang resibo? Oo. Ako, naniniwala pa rin ako, yung mga Meripiatos na yan, yung mga Andilim na yan, all of these are ghost people. I mean, they're not even existent. All right? At gusto nating malaman to kung talagang totoo ng mga tao yan. Bakit hindi nilang ilabas ang mga taong yan, papasukin at Madaling testimony lang yan. Sabihin lamang nila, kami nakatanggap, kami yung mga taong yan. May mga resibo yan. I believe that the Vice President has all the right mandated to her by the Constitution to answer all the allegations against her.
Well, Congressman, with the people we've spoken also, especially with previous impeachment trials, for example, specifically with former Chief Justice Renato Corona, the defense usually doesn't recommend that the respondent face the impeachment court. They'd rather that the respondent leave the task to the defense. So what would be different in this particular impeachment trial? Why would the defense tell their client, you should face the impeachment court? But also, at the end of the day, who ultimately makes that decision?
Of course, the defense lawyers would always protect their client about that. No, ha? Naintindihan ko yun. They have all the right to say what they want to say. They have all the right to defend the Vice President. Even if, for example, like illegal yan o hindi tama yan, they have all the right to defend the Vice President. Pero again, let me say this. I believe that the people do not only want to hear the side of the defense lawyers. They also would like to see the Vice President answer all the allegations. Abogado din siya eh. Kaya alam niya eh. Oo. Para matapos na ito. Dalawa na lang ang pinag-uusapan. Tapos na yung iba eh. Alright. Confidential fund. Paano ba yan? How can one person be given a check of 125 million pesos that she is able to withdraw? Ako nagtataka ako eh. Sino nabigyan ng authority for that withdrawal? Except of course, she is the Vice President. Oo. Pangalawa, ibinigay niya doon kay Colonel La Chica the 125 million. Aba, napakalaki nun. And I think that, I believe that only the Vice President could be able to answer that. It's not Colonel La Chica, it's not even Acosta. The Vice President could be able to answer that. Whatever the defense lawyers might say, still, the people would like to see the Vice President personally answering all the allegations against her.
Well, Congressman, recent surveys show that the Vice President still enjoys a fairly good trust and satisfaction ratings and still maintains strong public confidence and all. But you also said that the Vice President is not as popular anymore. So what made you say that, Kong?
Well, I'm going around also. I'm asking people. Naniniwala naman tayo palagi sa survey. No? And the survey is not always true. And that even happened during the election time. Where some politicians have very high survey rating, but they lost in the election. So, I mean, even the survey right now is not telling us the real truth about it. You see, with about 1,200 respondents that are being interviewed, does that in any way represent the more than 50 million Filipinos who are voters? You see, palagay ko, the rating of the president has gone down. Why? Because the Filipinos naman are intelligent people. They're not just beholden to a person and like a court. It's a courting thing, no? Na ito, wala akong pakialam kung anong kasalanan niya. Basta't kami, ito lang kami, ito pinapaniwalaan namin. Naniniwala po ako. The Filipino people are intelligent people and they are actually studying everything. Makikita po natin yan sa eleksyon gagawin sa 2028.
Kong Benny, some of the senators are either out of the country or in jail. So do you think the voting threshold needs to be challenged sa Supreme Court?
The what? The voting threshold?
Yung voting threshold. Kasi ngayon po, para ma-convict, kailangan po 16 votes among the senator
Yes.
judges. But
Yes.
yun nga po, given
Wala.
that some of them are out of the country or in jail, kailangan ba i-challenge talaga to na baguhin yung voting threshold pagdating sa impeachment proceeding na ito against the Vice President?
Actually, wala nang 16 eh. Wala
Yan
nang
nga po eh.
16 the thing is, meron pang mga charges that will be held against some senators, no? I do not know why they have to absent themselves. I do not know why a senator will have to go on leave, no? At a time like this, I do not know why another senator who is the minority leader should leave and not even involve himself in the impeachment court. Ako hindi ko maintindihan yan eh. If they really would like to exonerate the Vice President, they should be there. Oo, they should be there.
So, sa inyo po, Kong Benny, dapat po bang gawing less than 16 na lang yung voting threshold? Kasi yan po yung sinasabi nung iba na hindi dapat, according sa Constitution, 16 ang voting threshold pagdating sa impeachment trial, pag mag-convict, ano? Pero ang dinadahilan po ng iba, wala na pong natitirang senador. Paano pa po ma-achieve yung 16?
I will have to study what the Constitution says.
Sige
Because
po.
I still believe that it takes the majority vote to convict the Vice President. Kung walang majority yan, may majority yan, I believe that the President will be impeached. It will always take the majority vote of the Senate to convict the Vice President. Yun ang paniwala ko dyan. So it's not just 16, but actually it's the majority vote of the impeachment court that will convict the Vice President.
Well, Kong Benny, on that note, why do you think we haven't seen anyone petition the Supreme Court regarding the threshold? Because we're already tackling the second article. We're already in a second article when it comes to the legal proceedings already. Natapos na tayo sa grave threats. We've moved on to the misuse of confidential funds. Pero wala pa rin nagpe-petition sa Supreme Court about the threshold.
Siguro, sinasabi nila, we are going to cross the bridge when we get there. You know, palagay ko hinihintay po nila yan. The thing is, the Supreme Court is also waiting for that. The thing is, naniniwala naman ako that the justices are watching all the proceedings, and they are intelligent enough to realize the legality and the morality of what is happening. You see, kaya siguro nag-iingat din sila na pumunta na Supreme Court about that, no? Well, whatever it might be.
Well, Kong Benny, there were also reports that surfaced that Vice President Sara Duterte sought a meeting with President Bongbong Marcos to discuss her political future. Some reports even said that the Vice President would offer her resignation in exchange for her running in 2028. Now, the palace already, they didn't confirm nor deny this, but what are your thoughts on a possible reconciliation between the Marcos administration and the Vice President?
I don't think there should be any reconciliation. Ako, nagkataka rin ako bakit kinakailangan mag-reach out ang Vice President to the President samantalang tinakot niya na eh. Samantalang nag-hire na siya ng assassin against the President, against the First Lady, and against the former Speaker of the House. Sa akin, what would be hindi ko na malaman ang pwede kong sabihin dyan, pero alam mo, nagkataka ko, ba't kinakailangan pa mag-reach out the Vice President sa ating Pangulo with all of what has happened in the past? You see, yung kanyang pananakot, yung kanyang pagmumura, yung kanyang pagsasabi na nag-hire na ako ng assassin. Ano pa ang ibig sabihin nung she is trying to reach out to the President? Kung halimbawa man, merong ganyan. No? Pero sa akin, no, personally speaking, there should not be any reconciliation at all.
Well, at this point of the trial, Kong Benny, do you think, or are you confident na mako-convict po talaga si VP Sara, or is it too early to tell?
Well, sa akin, with all of the allegations presented, with all of the evidence that have been presented, naniniwala ako that the Vice President should be impeached. No? Sapagkat yung mga defense lawyers naman nila, ano pa ang sinasabi? No? I believe that it is high time for people to realize that the evidence given, all of the hearings that have been presented, go to the point of actually impeaching the Vice President. And I believe that she should be impeached at this point in time.
Well, Kong Benny, you're also the impeachment complaint endorser for the fourth article, which is already done and dusted. How do you think it was handled in the Senate impeachment court? What can you say about the entire proceedings with regard to the fourth article?
My only prayer is that the senators would not actually play politics on this. My only prayer is that they would look at the evidence presented and that they would appreciate whatever evidence that would be presented pa, no? I believe the prosecution team is very much prepared to even open the yung bang sinabi namin na wag mo nang buksan, di ba? Yung SALN, for example, in fact, the former Chief Justice Corona was impeached just because of the SALN issue. Oo, isa lang. Oh. Ito, napag-usapan na yung apat eh. Dalawa na lang hindi napag-uusapan pa eh. And I believe that there are a lot of evidence already given to actually impeach the Vice President.
Well, actually, Kong Benny, kayo nga rin po yung nag-endorse nitong Cabrera complaint, which also centered doon sa bribery and sa unexplained wealth of the Vice President, which will be tackled next already in the impeachment trial. Siguro, Kong Benny, can you give us a glimpse of what we can expect pagdating sa mga articles na ito?
Well, okay. Ano ba yan? I mean, napag-usapan na yung apat eh. Ang pag-uusapan na lang dyan yung confidential fund hanggang ngayon, no? I'm not actually convinced that the defense lawyer has actually defended the Vice President on that, no? The fact that Gina Acosta has admitted that she was ordered by the Vice President not only to disburse the 125 million, not only to withdraw the 125 million, but to give it to Colonel La Chica, which is not an organic member of the office of the Vice President. And ang pinag-uusapan natin dito, how was that spent? Ang pinag-uusapan dito ganito eh, was it proper for the Vice President to order Colonel La Chica to disburse all of the 125 million pesos? Was it proper for the Vice President to have withdrawn the 125 million pesos? Proper ba ang ginawa ng ating Vice President? Mandato ba niya yan? Nasaan ang resibo? Nasaan ang evidence tungkol sa mga bagay na yan? The people are looking for that, di ba?
Well, Kong Benny, I want to ask you about the budget before we let you go, no? In the 2027 proposed national budget, some 107 billion pesos is allocated for flood control projects. First, do you think this will be approved by the Congress at least? And secondly, what guarantees do Filipinos have that this money will not be wasted and or lost to corruption?
Totoo lang, I believe that human nature always dictates that there are always bad acts everywhere, no? Even the Senate, even in Congress, may mga bad eggs eh. May mga corrupt din talaga eh. At you know what? Nadadamay ang hindi eh. Nadadamay yung matitino, nadadamay yung hindi corrupt sa mga bagay na yan. The flood control projects are still very much important to address the flooding, especially in Luzon. Hindi pwedeng matanggal yan eh. Although merong corruption na nangyari dyan, this time, kinakailangan magkaroon tayo ng mga tinatawag nating reforms in actually spending the budget. For example, like, hindi na dapat makialam pa ang mga politiko dyan. Hindi na makialam pa. Tama yung sinabi ni Ombudsman Boying Rimulya. Mas maganda pa na gawin nating PPP lahat yan. Private public partnership na lang yan para mas maganda. Just imagine tinan nyo, ang nangyari sa Marikina. Alright? Even if the rivers overflowed, yet, hindi masyado nagkabaha doon. Bakit? Maganda ang pagkagawa ng kanilang flood wall ng floodgates. Sinong gumawa niyan? Pilipino ba? Hindi, JICA. Japanese. Siguro kinakailang isipin na yun ng gobyerno. Alright, wag na nating ipagawa pa yan sa DPWH. Lahat, no? Gawin na nating public-private partnership yan para mas maging maganda ang magagawa nila. Hindi pwede mawala ang flood control project appropriation. Hindi pwede yan Kailangan po yan ng mga taga-Luzon especially.
Alright, and on that note, thank you so much po, Congressman Benny, for joining us this morning. At mag-ingat po kayo at lahat ng mga constituents niyo po sa Manila. Once again,
Yes.
thank you very much for joining us. That was Manila 1st District Representative or Manila Representative Benny Abante.
Salamat
Thank
po.
you po.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much
Thank
for this
you.
opportunity. God bless.
Now, don't go away. We still have more matters to discuss after this quick break. Keep it here on One News.
Good morning. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News.
In Zambales, small fishing boats are prohibited from sailing due to rough sea conditions brought by the southwest monsoon. And for the latest update, we now go live to mobile journalist Arles de los Santos. Arles, kamusta ng sitwasyon dyan?
Pauline, sa ngayon ay nananatili na nakataas nga yung red rainfall alert dito sa Zambales. Partikular dito yung sa Olongapo City, maging sa mga katapi nitong mga probinsya or mga munisipalidad, kagaya na lamang ng San Narciso, San Felipe, maging sa Subic. At ngayon, Pauline, maitim yung kaulapan dito at pabugso-bugso pa din yung ulan. Pero sa ngayon, wala naman tayo nararanasan ng mga pag-ulan. Pero kanina nga ay binisita natin yung ilang mga coastal communities dito kung saan nga yung ilan sa mga mangingisda ay hindi na nakapapalaot. Ayon sa kanila, nasa 3 linggo na raw sila. Ay yung iba, 1 buwan na na hindi nakakaroon ng sapat na kita dahil nga sa masamang panahon. Maging ang turismo dito ay apektado na at yung ilang mga mangingisda o yung ibang mga nagpupunta sa dagat, doon sa tabi ng dagat yung kanilang trabaho ay talagang hirap na at nararanasan nga yung kanilang mga pagsubok dito. At kinumpirma nga kagabi Pauline ng Philippine Coast Guard na dahil nga tuloy-tuloy pa din yung masamang panahon at malalakas na alon na nararanasan dito sa Zambales, ay hindi na pwede pumalaot muna yung mga sasakyang pandagat na mayroong 35 gross tonnage or 35 GT na tinatawag dahil nga sa posible na panganib na maidulot nito sa mga mangingisda na susubok na pumalaot pa. Itong nakikita ninyo Pauline sa ating screen, ayan yung mga mangingisda natin kanina doon na hindi makapalaot at yung kanilang mga bangka ay nakadaong lamang doon sa gilid. Habang ito naman, yung nasa inyong screen ay yung mga komunidad na katabi ng mga bundok dahil nga tuloy-tuloy yung pag-ulan, yung mga tubig na yan at yung mga kalat na yan, yung mga bato ay tuloy-tuloy yung pagbagsak. Kaya yung ilang mga residente ay talagang nahihirapan na dumiskarte kung paano nga ba matatawid yung kanilang mga pang-araw-araw. Pero so far Pauline, walang pasok dito at nananatili pa rin naka-alerto ang mga otoridad dahil may mga bahagi dito na mabilis ang pagbaha.
Alright, maraming salamat para sa update na yan at mag-ingat ka. That was mobile journalist Arles de los Santos.
Now, weeks of heavy rain may be starting to show up in market prices. Mobile journalist Fatima Baduria is at Muñoz Market in Quezon City to check which basic food items are costing more. Fatima, go ahead.
Angela, sa pag-iikot natin kanina dito sa Muñoz Market, ayon sa mga nakausap nating ilang nagtitinda, meron talaga may mga ilan na mga nagtaas ng presyo. Partikular dyan yung mga presyo ng ilang gulay at isda dahil nga apektado rin daw yung dami ng nakukuha nila. Actually, mas konti daw talaga yung nakukuha nila at mas mahal yung singil. So mas mahal din yung pagbenta nila. Actually nga, kakaunti nga rin daw kasi yung mga mangingisda na lumalabas. Yan yung mga naririnig nila, no? Kaya talagang kakaunti rin yung huli at kailangan nilang ibenta ng mas malaki rin. Ganun din, posibleng apektado rin daw yung dumadating na mga gulay kaya mas mataas din yung presyo ng iilan. Ilan dun sa mga nabanggit nila na nagtaas ng presyo sa isda, yung bangus ay nasa 280 pesos per kilo, mula yan sa 240 pesos na presyo last week base doon sa bantay presyo na isinasagawa ng Department of Agriculture dito rin sa Muñoz Market. Yung galunggong ay tumaas din talaga, nasa 300 pesos per kilo mula sa 240 pesos yan per kilo last week. Sa gulay naman, yung talong ay nasa 160 pesos per kilo mula sa 120 pesos last week. Yung palaya nasa 140 pesos per kilo na 120 pesos din last week. Yung repolyo nasa 90 per kilo mula sa 80 pesos. Samantala, meron din naman ng mga steady yung presyo. Yung manok nasa 200 pesos per kilo pa rin. Yung karne ng baboy, yung liempo, specifically nasa 380 pesos per kilo. Ang laman ng baka nasa 550 pesos per kilo. Habang yung bigas ay naglalaro pa rin sa 48 to 50 pesos yung local at yung imported na bigas. Hindi naman yan nalalayo dun sa price range na itinakda rin ng Department of Agriculture. At yun nga lang, sabi ng mga nagtitinda dito, medyo tumumal din talaga ang bentahan dahil mas kumonte yung mga mamimili na nagpupunta dahil na rin hindi maganda ang panahon. Although ngayon naman tumigil ang pag-ulan dito, no? Kanina medyo mahina. So meron tayong mga pailan-ilan na nakakasabay dito na mga mamimili. Angela.
All right, thank you so much, mobile journalist Fatima Baduria.
Representative Toby Tiangco is calling for greater transparency in the House of Representatives' proposed budget for 2027. In an interview with One News Political Beat, Tiangco said the House should undergo the same budget briefing process required of other government agencies. He said the House should present its budget for scrutiny if it has nothing to hide. Tiangco also called for the public disclosure of budget allocations and projects for each congressional district.
So ang sabi ko lang is, bakit yung House, sabi ko may bang batas o nasa Constitution ba na exempted yung House? Hindi daw. So bakit hindi natin gawin yan the same for the House? Ang sagot sa akin is, tatanong daw sa leadership. Pero yung tanong na sinasabing tanong sa leadership niya, delaying tactic yun. In other words, ayaw nila. Kasi kung gusto nila at gusto lang tanong sa leadership, nandun naman yung speaker at yung majority leader, pwede naman sabihin, suspend muna natin, papaalam muna kami. Kung yun yung sinasabi niya totoo. So ibig sabihin, ayaw lang nila na dumaan sa prosesong yun. Kasi iba doon sa plenaryo eh. Pag sa plenaryo, hindi ka dumaan ng budget briefing, papaano namin malalaman kung papaano yung performance nila doon sa present budget? Ang makikita mo lang sa plenaryo is yung budget for 2027. Pero kung papaano ginastos yung 2025 at paano ginagastos yung 2026, hindi mo makikita yun doon sa kung walang budget briefing. Di ba? So yun ang aking sinasabi. Pero ayaw talaga nila.
Stay tuned. Morning Matters returns after a quick break.
Good morning. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. More areas in the country are shifting to alternative learning modes as persistent rains from the southwest monsoon disrupt face-to-face classes. More than 6.5 million learners and nearly 289,000 teaching and non-teaching personnel have been affected by class suspensions. DepEd clarified that learning continuity does not mean forcing students to complete regular academic work during unsafe or highly stressful situations. Schools were also ordered to coordinate with local authorities and disaster response agencies.
And joining us now is University of Santo Tomas College of Education Assistant Professor Eleanor Barami to discuss alternative learning amid the weather disruptions. Good morning, ma'am. Thank you for joining us here on Morning Matters.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right, well, first of all, ma'am, we've seen multiple class suspensions in recent weeks due to the bad weather. So first, tell us, how does this affect learning outcomes? And could these prolonged class suspensions, disruptions, affect the country's learning crisis even further?
Yes, so definitely, right? So we've seen like I guess a total of 10-day class suspensions already. Others are half-day suspensions, other full-day suspensions. But these have impacted learning delivery greatly because obviously like not everyone, not all schools have the capacity to do alternative delivery modes in learning. And so competencies that are typically delivered in like a week's time has suffered. And so now there's like a backlog in learning competencies and even the topics to be covered in classes.
Well, ma'am, the other day we've seen a lot of parents have turned to social media and posted about their complaints, no, regarding the late class suspensions of some of the LGUs here in Metro Manila. And sabi ko nga dito sa mga kasama ko, 2026 na. Until now, we're still talking about how are we going to suspend classes, no? But of course, we know and we realize and we know the challenges behind it. But do you think this is also time, or is it also time for the DepEd to revisit the guidelines and implement itong sinasabi nilang schools authority to declare granular rather school level class resumptions?
Yeah, first and foremost, we have to understand this has like been going on for like decades and decades already.
Yeah.
Typhoons are natural, right? But disasters are structural. And so we have to like I know it's kind of like I don't want to get political, but we have to demand like real flood control. Honestly, like that's the reason why, because it's inevitable. Like calamities are inevitable; they're gonna happen. And the context of this is that structurally and systemically we are not ready. Okay, and so with what you were saying earlier about leaving the discretion to the school heads or to
Yes.
school leaders, I totally agree with that. Because in a lot of situations, like for example, right now, I understand classes are suspended in most areas in Metro Manila. But right now, here in Manila, it's the weather is holding up. It's not raining at the moment, and I think the weather forecast has been correct so far. And so that leaves now students in the homes, okay, stuck at home again for the end day. And God only knows what's happening there at home and whether the schools are really delivering alternative learning modes. And so what we have to figure out first here is that I totally, DepEd is going to come up with a new, I guess, scheme in terms of the suspensions, like what's going to happen, and emergency response framework. It's probably going to be altered now. But definitely, I really believe that leaving the decision to the schools is very important. Coming from the Aquatic University of Santo Tomas, I think everyone saw what happened in the university the other day because the college level classes were not suspended earlier. And so what happened, there were like hundreds of students and staff stranded in the university. And so if discretion was left to the universities or to schools even, whether public or private, then that could have been avoided.
Well, Professor, in terms of the constant shifting from face-to-face classes to alternative learning, from modules or online classes, children need a sense of stability. Students need a sense of stability. What are the best ways to ensure that this, even if you keep shifting, whether you're in school or at home, what are the best ways for the schools to ensure, for teachers and parents, to make sure that their children are still learning?
Well, I think, it's very confusing for students nowadays. But we also have to understand that this is the new reality. We need that consistency. Yes, that's very true. But also because of the constant change that has happened ever since the pandemic, it's high time that we make adjustments, possible adjustments, and reasonable and realistic and sustainable adjustments, such as alternative delivery modes. Now, when we say alternative delivery modes, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's always online delivery. There are many ways by which alternative delivery modes can be delivered, can be provided. So one way, like maybe think about how we can be more flexible with our makeup classes even. I understand that there will be breaks in between, like especially towards October, November, like making a little bit of adjustment there in terms of maybe accommodating or having students come to school on days that were initially scheduled as like vacation days already. I mean, there's nothing we can do. Like it's already there. So we do have to make adjustments or even think about like attendance considerations, like making parents assess really in terms of whether it's possible for their kids to go to school or not, or even if it's possible for students to participate in remote or even modular tasks, which actually can support their learning. So I think everyone just really has to adjust. And I think the home environment is also very important here because the home will provide that consistency and that stability that we want our students to experience. So although the school may not be delivering directly the learning, at least, in the home, parents can kind of like keep their children safe within the home environment and also provide that consistency that children need.
Well, but Professor, parents also have to work. A lot of the time that,
Yeah.
when children are in school, that's when the parents are at work. So how how does this affect everything in that cycle?
Well, yeah, I'm glad you raised that because that already brings into the economic strain that these disasters have brought upon us. So it's not just educational, it's not just impacting the kids, but you also have parents who need to work and cannot provide that support to their children. So at the end of the day, it really is a systemic issue here. Okay, it's not now Dep Ed and the educational system just has to find a way in order to mitigate all these concerns because at the end of the day, although again we don't want to get political here, it is a political issue. The reason why this is all happening is because if you think about it, in other countries, why is it that there are typhoons, there are calamities that hit, but they don't have as many class suspensions as we have. If you look at the research, it's very consistent. The Philippines has had the most number of class cancellations because of disasters. And why is that? So if you look at it, if you look at the history of our country, it all boils down to that. It all boils down to the systemic and to the government, the non-delivery of services to the people by the government. And so at the end of the day, that is really where the issue lies. That is the root of the issue. So that is what has to be addressed first because before we can eventually address these issues that our students are experiencing in schools.
Well, Professor, it's really a tough balancing act when it comes to class suspensions because, of course, we have to prioritize the safety of the students while also preserving their learning time, right? So what would you say is the best method for alternative learning? Because EDCOM also pointed out that there are pros and cons to that, right? Like children grades 1 to 3 are more vulnerable because they need direct interaction with teachers and they can't simply rely on reading materials. So what would you say to that?
Well, I think at the end of the day, it really boils down to looking at how the schools can provide those opportunities for children, but at the same time, um, not sacrificing direct learning and experiences by that the students can have. So, take for example, in some schools that I know of, private schools in Manila, what they do is that they send materials to the children that they need in order to learn with a guide for the kids. It doesn't necessarily need too much adult supervision. Okay, it's things that kids can do. And I think it's also high time, especially for the younger ones in early childhood, maybe having those opportunities or providing, I guess, how do I say it? Um, Alternative modes in such a way that the services are delivered to them in various modalities, like maybe sending like a video of some sort, or having like a little short like online session for kids, like doesn't necessarily have to last for an hour. But for the higher grades, I think it's high time that we consider independent learning for our learners, especially those from grades 4 and up. I think our education system has to move now away or towards more independent learning, which also is going to help really our learners become more self-sufficient in terms of their learning. But for the younger ones that may need a little bit more of adult supervision, maybe trying to think outside of the box as educators in, okay, what can we provide our students at the moment that may not necessarily need too much adult support or supervision, but something that the students can kind of like utilize in the home environment. And maybe, also opening our schools up to additional days, maybe even just a few hours, not necessarily the full day, but like staggering those hours through the different days just to kind of like catch up. Because at the end of the day, kids like to go to school. I think like, sometimes we think that okay, it's fun, ay walang pasok. But when it's already days and days of no classes, kids get bored at home. Kids get tired
Exactly.
staying at home. At the end of the day, they want to be with their friends. They want to be interacting with people. They want to be in school. So we just have to figure out as I guess in like little in the schools and even in districts, how the schools can really figure out how students can really benefit from other means of learning.
When kanina po nabanggit po ninyo na alternative modes of learning is not new to us already, no, because we have dealt with this during the pandemic. And the problem here lang po na napapansin po natin is yung inequity. Because, okay, hindi po lahat merong laptop. Hindi po lahat pwedeng makapag-Zoom because of internet connections. And even the teachers themselves are dealing with flood as well. Ano? Yung mga houses nila, may mga baha din. And I did a story before about this teacher na, okay, sige, kapag walang internet, puntahan ko na lang yung mga estudyante, bigyan ko sila ng mga modules, i-print ko. But also, meron din po yung kaakibat na challenge on the side, on the part of the teacher. Sometimes walang pang-print, walang papel, far-flung areas, hindi maabot yung mga modules. So how do we deal with that?
Well, first of all, I think it shouldn't be the job of the teacher to do that, honestly. Like the printing, the going to the homes, like that shouldn't be part of what a teacher does. Teachers do that out of the goodness of their heart and out of dedication for the profession and dedication to the children they work with. But it shouldn't be the teacher's job to do that. It should be the department's job to figure out how to get those modules and how to get those materials to the students, not the teachers. And so at that point, like I think like we should take out that responsibility from teachers. It can't be all the teacher's responsibility. It's just too much work for the teachers already. They themselves are already having difficulties in their own with their own personal stuff when they get into all these flooding and disasters and whatever. So I think it's the department's job to figure it out.
On that note, because we've also heard many stories about teachers paying out of their own pockets for school supplies or helping children in their classrooms who don't have supplies that they need for classes. Aside from obvious financial support, what are the systemic changes that need to be made to make sure that the burden isn't placed on our teachers?
First of all, I think we have to empower our teachers. We have to trust their teachers that their teachers are making the right decisions. Teachers studied to be teachers. They didn't just become teachers just because they wanted to be teachers. We have to trust our educators and trust the decisions that our educators are making, whether it's decisions about the lesson that they teach in the classroom, whether it's about decisions that they're made to like how the lesson should be delivered, what alternative modes to be used. Teachers know best. And I think if we empower our teachers more, the system, and I'm not saying the system is going to change, but that's going to be like a huge that's gonna like close a huge gap in terms of what's happening in our system. You know, if we give that responsibility to the teacher in terms of decision making, but at the same time taking away the responsibility of things that they shouldn't be made responsible for.
Professor, going back to the issue on class suspensions, we talked about earlier how we should move away from blanket suspensions to having localized suspensions. But who do you think should be making that decision? And should schools also be more flexible when it comes to their students? Because let's say Manila, the flood there isn't too bad or it's not raining that hard, but in the areas where these students live, they're facing difficulties when it comes to traveling and getting to schools.
So I think what should happen there, so the decision should be made by the school head. And then if given the flexibility of that decision, it should also trickle down to flexibility in terms of attendance. So in some schools that I know of, what they do is they open up their schools. Okay, they open up their schools for the day despite some suspensions because if the weather is holding up. And then they tell the parents that okay, the school is going to be open, the teachers are going to be here. Send your kids to school. You're if you don't if you feel it's not safe or if you're coming for an area that's not safe, then the absence of your child will not be counted for that particular day. Okay, but at least you know the schools open up their doors and be like, okay, our teachers are gonna be here. You know, this area is safe, but if you're coming from an unsafe area, keep your kids at home. So at the end of the day, it's like school head decision, but also at the end of the day, it's parental discretion. So it's really up to the parents to decide how safe it is to send their kids to school.
Well, this is an issue that we will continue to discuss. For the meantime, as always, thank you for your time. University of Santo Tomas College of Education Assistant Professor Eleonor Barami. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, don't go away. Morning Matters will be back after this short break. Keep it here.
Good morning mga kapatid. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News.
All right, that's it for today's news. But before we go, we're going to talk about our takeaways from today's stories. Of
We have
course,
a lot of stories today.
Or the non-story because there's no impeachment hearing
There
again
you
today.
go.
Yes, no impeachment hearing, but they will resume, I guess, if the weather is
Next week.
fair next week. But of course, we're talking about flood. Okay, flooding here in our country, and of course, before we started the show, we also talked about the plans to mitigate the floods here in our country. But of course, sinasabi nga natin. This is just plans and we need concrete actions. And may mga nag-point out din kasi na mga experts that are saying that yes, it is good to mitigate the floods, yung mga spillway na yan, yung mga dredging and desilting na yan, etc. But it's also good that we should do yung catchment of rainwater, which is apparently, it is under our law na parang nung if I'm not mistaken, 1989 pa yun. It was signed by President Corazon Aquino, Rainwater Collector and Spring Development Act.
Yeah.
So parang it mandates the barangay to have a catch basin, para makuha yung tubig ulan.
Yes.
And apparently, if you will notice, some of the private sectors, private companies like the malls and the hotels, they do this.
Yeah.
No, they catch the rainwater and reuse it for cleaning purposes sa hotel nila or yung pang-flush ng toilet nila.
they actually have that in BGC. So under Burgos Circle, there's a big catch basin there, and that's where all the rainwater goes. Kaya hindi masyadong binabaha, right, in BGC. But of course, that came with good urban planning bago pa tinayo yung
before
Bonifacio
they
Global
even-
City.
yeah.
Now that we have our cities and they're quite dense, I don't know how we're gonna do that. So, ito na naman tayo sa feasibility study.
Yeah, nga.
Walang
Pero
katapos.
para makikita mo doon, it can be done.
It can be done.
It can be done.
But also, it costs money. So that's also why we need to pay attention to where our money goes. Because these are the projects that actually need to be done, in a timely manner. Because we deal with this, we talk about this all the time, we deal with
Every
this every year. So even yesterday, like see our mobile journalist Daniel Dayo, like when I was talking to her, the town that she was in, 20 years na daw na ganun yung baha. So what do you mean in 20 years no one has done anything?
Exactly. Kaya nga nakikita natin na, as I've said kanina, it can be done, pero ang tawag dito, yung mga flood control projects, like for example, yung sinabi nila yung during the Pinoy administration, it was actually funded by World Bank. Aside pa dun sa budget that was allocated for that. So gusto din natin malaman anong nangyari doon, 'di ba? I know may mga right-of-way issues, may mga solid waste management issues doon, but what happened? And yun nga ang gagawin naman nila because that's ang tawag dito, hindi na siya updated. Ang gagawin nila yung 2026 kasi nga 'di ba may mga drainage problem na rin tayo, etc. So we need concrete action, no? Maganda talagang magplano, pero maganda rin tinutupad.
And let's also not forget about our role in this. Syempre, when it comes to our waste disposal, that's also a huge problem. Dapat maging responsible po tayo for our trash para hindi po yan mag-clog at maipon sa ating mga drainage system. Kailangan may accountability po tayo both ways.
All right, and that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. I'm Angela Lagunzad-Castro.
We hope we've given you just the right start to your morning. I'm Cesca Litton-Kalaw.
Let's make the day matter. I'm Pauline Verzosa, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
Kapatid, we're One News.
Your side?
All the time.